So, so what did you guys do with Brock on Monday? Because his was, the notes I got just said he was working on setting appointments.
This is what he went through.
Pre-consultation, basically.
Okay, awesome. So you talked about qualifying your buyer, asking qualifying questions. What did he talk about as far as getting someone to meet you? Where did he suggest that you get somebody to meet you? At our office. Did he talk about any other places you might meet?
Coffee shop or
Okay.
McDonald's or something, but generally not somewhere super private, I guess.
Not at the showing.
Not at the showing,
Yeah.
and it has become almost impossible to meet them at the showing because of the strict requirement to get buyer docs signed. It's almost impossible to get somebody you haven't met yet to sign any kind of document before you let them in the house. So those are the places I would choose to meet. I do a lot of East Lansing work, and so it's not unusual for me to say, hey, would you rather meet in East Lansing? I met some people at Campbell's Market this week. Just so you guys know, Blue Owl in Rio Town is excellent. They have a back room. You can call and reserve their back room if it's not already reserved.
There's a co-owner there. I didn't even realize they had the back room.
Yeah, on the Rio Town, at the Rio Town one they do. I use them a ton during COVID.
Nice.
Because we had the office closed, but if you have somebody that's super focused on an area, your expertise of knowing a good place to meet often kind of soothes them, if that makes sense. If you have somebody who maybe doesn't know anything about our real estate market, or they're hesitant, or they think maybe they aren't real familiar with Keller Williams or something, bringing them to our office is really effective because we have a nice office. On the scale of real estate offices, we have a very nice place to bring people into. And so that kind of use the office as your legitimacy. The other thing I would say before I sit down to actually do my buyer's presentation is part of buyer's presentation and meeting where you're going to be someplace public is safety. The other piece of that safety is having them pre-approved with a lender that you know. Because the lender's going to ask them for their residence, their proof of employment, who they are, their ID, and that kind of takes that off of your burden. So if you know that Joe Schmidt at 123 Bank has already run all of their stuff, you have taken that piece of security out of your hands and put it on somebody else that you trust to do a good job. I started my life in real estate working Zillow leads that were under 100,000. Most of them are actually under 90,000 in the city of Lansing. And it stunk. It was awful. I met a lot of people that never were going to be able to buy a house. And that wasn't the awful part of it. The part of it that was awful was that my team required me that I go out and meet them at the house, not knowing who they were. So I am very conscious. I've worked at a liquor store in the city of St. Louis, so I don't get freaked very easily. I've been in a lot of scarier things than what I encounter in real estate, but yet I'm still cognizant that there's a safety issue here that you want to protect yourself. And the other thing is just to remember that anything you can do to create the professionalism that you need will help you down the road, because you need all of them to believe that you're the professional in this, all your clients to believe you're the professional in the situation, and the office really helps that. Used to be that the statistic was, if you read Millionaire Real Estate Agent, that they said every listing would create 2 buyers. our market is moving so fast right now that hopefully you pick up a buyer from a listing, but it's not as common as what it used to be. My childhood imaginary friend was Roosevelt Franklin, so Roosevelt Franklin is here with us today, ready to buy a house. I believe personally, I'm old, so I believe in paper. So I believe paper legitimizes you to your client, because any professional they go to, they get paper. So I think that there's a lot of, especially on the front side, value to having a buyer packet that you bring. This is just a strict printout of the one that's in command. And then you guys are welcome to look at the one that we use, which is a modification of this. So here is what I bring in to a buyer's presentation. These are, you can get, I think the office still sells these, they're $1.50 a piece or something. We order ours a little bit more in bulk, but you can get them from the office. You can make them one at a time if you need to. I keep a drawer of buyer ones and a drawer of seller ones. My buyer ones are black, my seller ones are red, so that if somebody calls me and says, hey, I want to sell my house today, I'm not shuffling around trying to find paperwork. I've got it all together. And when I started, my daughter, who was 11 at the time, made all my copies for me. We still have her list that she organized herself in her 11-year-old handwriting. But this is something that I have my admin people do for me, but it's something that I would recommend doing for yourself if that's where you're at. So I have a link. There's a QR code to the property tax estimator for the state. There's a QR code to the lead-based paint information. These are things provided by the office. Then the mediation form, because all of the new contracts say that you have provided that to your buyer. The information about home warranty, so that they can read through that and you're not trying to do that on the fly. My intent is that they get all of the things I want them to have through the course of whether it's buy or sale at the beginning, because then I can go back and say, remember I gave you that. Go find your red folder, go find your black folder. And some people can't, right? You know, it goes into their abyss and you have to start over.
You did the QR codes.
We made them.
Already save our questions till the end.
No, you're good.
Okay.
No, we made them.
Oh, okay.
So there are QR code generators, and
Yes.
I think I could fake it on my own if I needed to, but I have a marketing assistant that is also an agent. And I got her when she was in high school and young and knowledgeable, and now she's been with me 5 years and is stuck with me.
Mm-hmm.
And I come up with the ideas and then she figures it out. So then these are the documents that I think are super important to have in, as we have moved into the, you have to have everything signed before you go into a house. So I have the, and I'm not doing buyer docs with you in detail today. I believe that that's next Monday, I think. So, does that sound right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So I've got disclosure of real estate relationships, which is a state document that's just branded from GAR. I have the hire Renee docs, so the actual exclusive buyer agency agreement. I have the addendum to buyer agency. Those are the bare minimum that you need to have signed to take somebody into a house. And we'll talk about, I'll give you a couple of scenarios of how I deal with the paperwork, but just know I want to get in the room with a paper copy with them. Then I bring a draft copy of the purchase agreement, and I'll do it, but I also literally say to them, here's a copy so that if you are a detail-oriented person or if somebody else in your life is a detail-oriented person, You can go through it before we're in the excitement of writing an offer on a house. You don't have to learn how to fill this out, obviously, I'm gonna do that. But here's a copy for you. The other thing I always ask or inquire or bring up is if you have an attorney in your life or a parent or somebody that's going to want to know about the documents, do it now, not when we're halfway through a transaction and they start making you question things. And I learned that the hard way, except that I had covered my butt already. We're gonna sit down. You always want to be gracious. I am not cool enough that I can remember to keep change in my life to run the soda machine, but at least offer them water, if not water and coffee. If you get here and Mackenzie is here, is here, she will offer them whatever we have available. But all right, so we've got Roosevelt here, and I'm going to say so. Thanks for coming by, Roosevelt. We're ready to start this exciting process. Just want to get together and go over a few things. And they'll always say, great, right? They always are like, oh yeah, we're excited. So I kind of judge it by who I'm talking to. Are they more concerned about the procedural stuff? Like, do they need to know ABC, how this is gonna go, or are they more excited about the house? I always do whatever I think they're more excited about first, okay? So I'm gonna say, you know what, why don't you tell me what you're hoping to find today? And we're gonna start out, and Roosevelt's gonna be interested in a 3-bed, 1.5 bath home. So I'm gonna say, okay, so let's remind me, and I always use A, and so if you don't know how to set up the computer in room A, get with Kinsey and learn how to do that so that you aren't fumbling around with it when you've got a client sitting in front of you, okay? So I'm going to only show active and coming soon things, right? Because all they're going to do is fall in love with something that's active under contract. I'm going to say, okay, remind me, we're only looking for a single family home, right? Yep, okay, we're only looking for a single family home, no condos. Okay, and are you able to make a 2-bedroom work? Nope, it's gotta have 3 bedrooms. So then I put in my 3 bedrooms and up. All right, and if I remember right, you were talking about if it had just an extra half bath, you'd really love it to have 2 full baths, but you could make an extra half bath work, right? Yes. So I think you guys have used Flex enough that you know that baths total means it could be, obviously you wouldn't have 2 half baths, but if I put 3 in there, it might be 1 full bath and 2 halves, right? Okay. So then, in today's market, lots of the niceties, you just don't have a choice over, right? I mean, there was a day where you could say, we're only gonna look at things that are this many square foot and above, but we are so tight for inventory that typically I'm not restricting it by above area, square finish space, or sometimes I am by lot, because I'll show somebody something and they're like, I just can't do anything smaller than that. So let's pretend that Roosevelt and his family, we looked at something that was less than 1/10 of an acre and they're out if it's less than that. But that's a good place to put. Sometimes people, especially if you're at the higher price points, they really want a 1/4 acre lot or bigger. So that's a good thing you might restrict down. But we're just gonna look at Lansing today. So
I'm not even gonna, used to be able to like say, oh, we're only gonna look at stuff with garages. If we're at a lower price point right now, there's looking at what's there. I mean, that's just where I'm at. So sorry, we can drop some out, but I'm gonna send you everything, cause you might suddenly decide for the right kitchen, you're gonna park your car just in a parking spot. So let's see, let's say that Roosevelt works at the Capitol and he'll drive 15 minutes from the Capitol. So I hit my radius tool and I'm just gonna pull 10 miles. Ish. And then our price range is really 150 to 200, but why would I put in 125 to 175?
What was the question?
So his price range is actually 150 to 200.
Mhm.
But if I have a buyer telling me that right now, I'm gonna put in 125 to 175. Why would I do that? So it has to do with what's going on in this part of the market. So our middle of our market, right, is 220 to 240. But this is a really common starter home price. Would you agree?
Right now, absolutely.
Right now.
Yeah.
Everything that I've shown above 150, below 200, and I've been in 30 of them in the last 2 weeks. If they were at all appealing, not ugly, dog poop on the floor, they're not priced quite there anyway. But if they were at all appealing, they have gone 10 to 15% above their asking price. So you can't take a buyer that is ready to go and wants to get out of that apartment and show them a $195,000 house when they've got a hard stop at 200. Can't do it. If you do it, you're just setting yourself up for failure and them up for failure, and the more times they fail, the more discouraged they get. So I wrote on a 3-bedroom, you probably did you write on Gordon, on Libby? Strip Coast? So I wrote on one, cute little bungalow style, in Colonial Village. It was special only in that it looked like it'd been decorated in the last 10 years, as opposed to something that had been decorated in 1985. 3-bed, had 2 full baths and a half bath, so that's unusual in Colonial Village. Libby had 12 offers. I wrote 10% above, and I wasn't even in the mix. So, you've got it, and that may change, right? If our market changes and everything's getting negotiated, you might be able to put in up to 225 because you're gonna be able to negotiate off 10%. But just set your buyer up for success. Know enough about what's going on in the market in the price range that you're looking for that you're gonna help your buyer be successful. All right, so here we go, Roosevelt, let's look and see if you've seen any of these, okay? They always go, yeah, oh yeah. And then they always ask you about one that they have seen that's not on there. So I always sort by highest at the top. Oh, I'm surprised this one hasn't sold. So then I just show them some. When I'm sitting here, I say, well, what do you think about this one? Does this look like something you could live in? Oh, this isn't the one I thought it was. Oh yeah, we've seen that one, and then I'll flip over to the map and go in. This one's over by the Capitol, but it's on the Capitol side of MLK. It's on the east side of MLK. and they'll say, you know, we really love that area of town, but we only wanna be on the west side of MLK. We don't like, it seems like the ones on the east side of MLK are, you know, whatever, they tell you. So you start getting information while you're sitting here. Oh, let's look at this one, I've seen this one online. Okay. And so I'm picking up clues while I'm looking, and they know how fast things are moving currently. You know, they're aware because they've been looking at Zillow. They know what's going on, how fast things are going. So they're gonna ask, this one's got snow on the ground. They're gonna say to me, why is this one still sitting here? I'm gonna go, I don't know, let's take a look. So, well, it's not really prepped for market, it doesn't look like real well. You know, would we agree that like whatever this is over the lamp and the bed that looks like the dog was up on it, you know, probably not the best. Yeah, so what do you think if you're the buyer's agents and the photos suck? Well, so what would you do right now? What are you thinking if you're looking at this?
Well, so me personally, I would say, you know, generally when photos suck, if I don't see a Jet Media post or a tag on it or a windowsill, then we should probably go see it because it's probably an agent that just took iPhone pictures really quick.
And what might you have? An opportunity,
Oh, yeah,
right?
absolutely. Yeah.
So this one's been on, let's say you've got a sweet young thing buyer in front of you and they're telling you that their uncle who sold real estate for 3 months in 2008 tells them they shouldn't pay market price for anything. Yeah, you've had that buyer.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got 30 days here. So they've not had a price drop. So let's look at the map, see where it is. I don't know where that one is. Jolly and Cedar. Well, that's not a bad little area. It's not very far off Jolly, but oh, it backs up to Jolly. So that may be, you know, if somebody was asking me, I'd say, well, you know, didn't have professional photography taken, and it backs up to Jolly, so it might not be for everybody. But if we could get this a little bit off this asking price, or if we could get some help with closing costs, would this maybe be your thing? And somebody was gonna tell you no, and somebody's gonna tell you yes, right? But you're learning more about them. And as I was doing this, I'd be taking notes. Hate stuff in the capital area east of MLK, like it west of MLK. Seem okay with 1910, 1920s, because sometimes you'll get somebody in Lansing that they're like, oh, I hate all that stuff up by the Capitol, but they're still, if there was a newer build in there, they would still live there or whatever, and then you can come down in your search and edit your search by year built. So additional search options, and I put year built in a lot when I'm working in Lansing, because they're not gonna tell you they don't wanna live, or they may tell you they wanna live in a bad neighborhood. You can't define the bad neighborhood, right? They've gotta do that. But sometimes it's really easy to drop out before a certain day built, and that pushes you in to areas they wanna live. So, you know, you have to be careful about how you do that, because you don't want to label bad and good.
Renee, real quick.
Yeah.
Do you refer your people to crimemapping.com? Okay. Yep.
Yeah, and the school stuff, and And especially if you work with very many single people that will be coming and going from a property or from their house by themselves, what I've learned is to tell them to look up for sexual predators. And I think that should be male and female. I don't think that you should say that just for one.
Absolutely,
But
yeah.
you know, you don't want to have one that got me is I had a FISBO years ago, and it was in the neighborhood that I knew Kim Dunham grew up in. And I said, so if I told you that I have a buyer who there's going to be one person at the home by themselves late at night often because of what the other person does, and they were going to move next to the Smiths, what would you tell me to do? And she said, I would tell you to keep moving, because there was a registered sex offender next door. And she said, there's not one sex offender that lives in that house, there's two. Because sometimes, right, I knew she would know the neighborhood well enough. Sometimes mom and dad will let somebody register, but the person doesn't live there or whatever. And she was like, oh no, you do not want to live there. I was like, okay then, I will tell my people they want to keep on moving. But, you know, be aware, just because there's a registered sex offender, there's grades of that, there's people that may not actually live there, but you know, that's something you don't want to be responsible for, but you want to let them take hold of.
So is that, so we can't say that directly, or
No.
we can't say it directly, but we can say you might wanna move on.
So-
That's cool to say.
The way I understand the legalities is if it's through personal experience and or if somebody were to tell you, you can offer that information, but you can't say this is fact.
So
Right.
so what I
Right,
did in that
that's what I mean.
situation, I said, they had asked me if I would live there, and I said, well, let me just do a little bit, let me see what I can see. And I came back and said, no, I would probably, because they were the ones that brought it up to me. I didn't do research, I didn't, you know.
Yeah, always
Yeah,
make sure your
sometimes you
people
get
are doing
fish
their
rate.
research though,
If you
and
do, it's kind of.
pass
So-
out the info.
Yeah, and some of the things that I feel comfortable doing that I believe are within reason. So I say, Lansing is a place where we love our cars.
Mhm.
Would you agree? Everybody will agree, yep. Say, don't freak out if there's one guy in the neighborhood that's got 6 cars out in front of his house, because he's probably the one fixing everybody's car, right? Because even in East Lansing, we've got guys that fix cars on the weekends. But if you start driving and the cars don't look good or reasonable, you might want to take that in, right? Because we're a community that we like our cars. They'll buy a new car. People will buy a new car before they buy a new house, because they will. And then the other thing, I always tell people to go look where they would buy milk or bread if they had to go out at 9:30 at night and go buy something, which means they're going to the QD, right? I mean, that's the reality is they're going to the QD. And how they feel about it. Well, where my old house was, I stuck to the 4 because it was where all of the frat boys came to buy their beer and their kegs. Well, if my vision had been that I was going to take my sweet little baby to the store with me at 9:30 at night, I wouldn't have liked that area, right? Because there was no place, I mean, QD's it, that was the place to buy it. QD's in parts of town that some people might consider bad. Those ladies that work at QD know everybody in the neighborhood, they know their mama, they know, you know, and those kids come into the store and greet those ladies by name. And they know what tests they had after school, you know, I mean, it really gives you a more probably intimate sense of what the neighborhood is than if you're just out there looking at crime maps, even though they should look at crime maps. And when people ask me about crime maps, I always say there's going to be crime in every neighborhood. It doesn't matter, you just have to decide if you're okay with it. So here's what I would say to somebody that's relocating. I would say, you know, I want you to love where you drive. When you drive home at night to your house, I want you to love it. So when you're here, here are the things I want you to do. I want you to go to the grocery store in 3 or 4 different areas. Because if you hate the people in the grocery store with you, you're gonna hate where you live. Because all of us go to the grocery store at points where we don't want to, right? You know, you're tired, it's late, you've gotta go to the grocery store. I literally have to dodge the drunk kids in their pajamas, right? When I go to Lake Lansing Meyer. Sometimes, yesterday I went to the apple market on Saginaw, so I didn't have to go to Lake Lansing Meyer. Because I would rather deal with that than deal with Lake Lansing Meyer kids. So I want him to go to the grocery store. Some people love the South Cedar Meyer. Some people go look at South Cedar Meyer and go, hell no, I don't want to live any place that's where I've got to go to the grocery store. So I have them go to the grocery store. I have them go to where they would eat out after work if they got home and they didn't want to do that. They didn't want to cook. Let's pick on Baker. I love Corey's. I'll go to Corey's. I'll roll up to Corey's anytime, anywhere. Doesn't bother me. I don't care if a drunk talks to me in the parking lot. I don't care if they ask me rude things from the drunk in the parking lot. Doesn't bother me. It would horrify my mother.
Same.
So, you know, just they can make those decisions. And sometimes it's weird, you know, sometimes I would ask them about their hobbies. And if they were super outdoorsy, there's places I would say, why don't you go drive through Moores Park neighborhood? Look at the park there, look at the access to the trails. I would try to be more positive about things. Now, I will tell you, I have stood on Baker Street showing a house, and the young lady I was with was looking for something under $100,000. So we were on Baker Street. She was big pregnant. She runs a business from her home. She's a nail tech. She's a girl that she's gone to Vegas now. She decided that God didn't want her to be here, whatever. But girls would drive in from Detroit, from the city of Detroit, to spend like $500 on nails. That this girl did. She did the great big long ones with jewel encrusting and, you know, airbrush and all that stuff. And I am standing while she's looking. I'm standing watching a cash business across the street, if you know what I mean. Cars have come and gone. And I said to her, there's a lot of activity across the street, and I'm pretty sure they're running a cash business. And she said to me, no worries, the guy in the apartment next to me sells pills. I'm used to it. She wanted an address that was easy to find. She felt like that people could get off the interstate coming from Detroit and find that address. So was that a good neighborhood or a bad neighborhood? Not my judgment to make, right? Yeah, I mean, it would have worked fine for her. Like I said, she decided she was moving on. They'd pay her $800 in Vegas to do her nails or whatever. But that, you have to be really careful. I would live on North Penn. I've got 2 listings right now. They're big old 1910s house. I'd live there. I was telling my co-list agent that if something happened, I could see myself living in one of these houses. I love the light, love the location. Neighbors are friendly. They're all from recent immigrants. They like to know what's going on in their neighborhood. I could get myself a big dog and live there. And she was horrified. So she's younger than me. You would think I'd be the one that would have the issue living on North Penn, right? You know, just don't make any assumptions, because what you see and what I see might be 2 different things. And I'd be really careful about anything that you put one way or another about positive or negative online in any format, just because you don't want to get shopped. I haven't gotten shopped in a long time, but it used to happen to me with Zillow leads, and it would be, I'd have somebody that sounded American middle class, and then I'd have someone that maybe sounded like English wasn't their first language, and then I'd have somebody that sounded like maybe they were very urban. And if I didn't treat those 3 people the same, then I could have had a violation. And that's one of the reasons, how are we doing for time? That's one of the reasons that I do this. Because then it doesn't matter if you have purple spots and worship hubcaps, I've given you the same information. You know, everybody's gotta be treated fairly, and you can't ever have somebody come back and say, well, I think because I was a hubcap worshiper, they didn't give me the information that they would have given somebody else. All right, so then I'm gonna be done with this. I'm gonna try to have determined that there's a house or two that they like. I'm gonna set a time that we're gonna go see them and commit them to the next step, okay? Then I'm gonna say, okay, now we're gonna do some boring stuff. All right, remember how I talked about that there was gonna be paperwork I wanted to go over with you? Yeah, because I'll have mentioned that. And my appointment setting technique, just so you guys know, and I don't know what my statistic is for the last 12 months, but historically it's been about 30% of the people I work with are first-time buyers. I'm gonna say I have a packet of information that I share with first-time buyers. Wouldn't you come sit down with me and so we can go through, even no harm, no foul if you don't decide to work with me, but I just have some great information I wanna share.
Where are we at in the process here?
We have done our needs analysis and we have a search set.
All right.
And now, remember how I told you that there would be some paperwork that I want to go over with you?
Yeah, I absolutely do.
Okay, awesome. So, first thing I want to give you is a copy of the purchase agreement. And this is just a great way to review that before we get in love with the house. And
Okay.
if you have any questions, let me know. Do you have an attorney in your life? Like, is your brother an attorney or something? We haven't talked about that.
No, no,
Okay.
I don't have anybody like that.
Every once in a while, somebody's got somebody in their life, and I just always say, please give that to them because they need to read it before we get into
Well,
this.
should I get an attorney or?
Typically, the way I write the purchase agreement is that you can hire an attorney if you want to.
Okay.
We don't often use attorneys in residential real estate in mid-Michigan, but I'm always going to preserve the right for my clients to be able to hire an attorney if they need one.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So the rest of this is some information about our title company and some other things you'll need when we get closer to moving. And then, have you been online and heard anything about a lawsuit in the real estate industry?
Yeah, and I've had some friends talk to me about it, so.
What'd your friends have to say?
I don't know, I wasn't really paying attention, but they just said something about buyer's agents trying to take commissions, and I didn't really understand it. To be
Okay.
honest with you.
Well, hopefully you'll have a better understanding when we leave tonight. Here's the most important thing, is that Michigan was ahead of the curve. The lawsuit was about disclosure of fees. And do you think I do this for fun and as a hobby, or is this my profession?
This is 100%, I think, is your profession.
You're right, so do you think I get paid for it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so we're gonna talk about how that happens, okay? All right, so the first one is just information that the state of Michigan wants you to have as a consumer interacting with a licensee,
Okay.
okay? So this just goes through like the bare minimum of what you can expect from me as far as service. Sellers agents work for sellers, buyers agents work for buyers, dual agents have to be disclosed by law. I am not likely to practice dual agency, which would mean I already have a relationship with a listing and a relationship with you, and the two work together. The way I am more likely to do that is if I have a listing that you're interested in, I'll refer you to a team member so that you can have your own representation.
Understood.
And then designated agency is that you and I are going to work together. You're not working with every KW agent there is.
Okay.
Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah, yep.
So versus if, I break the wall, if Jake and I and you had an agency, it would be understandable that the three of us would know something about each other's clients, right?
Yep.
Right, so there's 150 Keller Williams agents. I'm the one you've got the relationship with. So I'm gonna put this, we're gonna sign all of this before we go into houses tomorrow.
Okay.
Just set the appointment to go on Thursday.
100%. Yeah,
So-
I'm looking forward to it. Actually, it's gonna be a lot of fun.
So we'll sign all this, and we can sign it electronically if you're comfortable with that after you review it, or we can sign it in person when we're at the house. So then this is the hire Renee document.
Okay.
And we'll fill this in, and it's up to you how you wanna do it. Whether you wanna just see houses tomorrow and decide whether you're comfortable working with me and I'm comfortable working with you, or if you feel good at the end of today and you want to, sign up for 4 months, I'm happy to do either way. We can adjust, so you can think about that. So we're gonna say what you're looking for, how long we're gonna work together, and here we're at the part of how do agents get paid. So I get paid 3% to do this. Oops, if I put it in the right place, there we go. So that 3% is part of the cost to buy the house, and it can be handled a couple of different ways. The seller could be agreeing to pay part or all of that, or the seller could be agreeing to pay none of it.
So what happens if the seller agrees to pay none of it?
Well, first of all, we try to negotiate,
Okay.
because the interesting thing is that people act like you can't negotiate anything in a real estate transaction. In reality, everything is negotiable. So let's say we pick out a house and they say, no, we're not going to pay any of the buyer compensation. You could choose just to pay me additionally as part of your closing cost, if you have those type of reserves. Or we can go back to the seller and say, after we've decided that we're okay with the price and everything, we can say, our agent needs to get paid 3%, can we add 3% above to the sales price so that the agent can get paid through the transaction? Or we could have some combination thereof.
Okay. So I might be on the hook for 3% if the seller doesn't want to pay it.
You could be, but we could also choose not to buy that house.
Okay, that makes sense.
So, in the 10 years that I've been in practice, I think a handful of buyers have ended up paying me some percentage. I've never had anybody where the seller just wouldn't pay anything.
Okay.
So, right now I've got a buyer under contract where the seller will pay 2%, and I've negotiated with my my buyer, and they're gonna pay me an additional half, and that's okay with me.
Okay.
So it just is, we just have to take it on a case-by-case basis. Most sellers want a buyer agent to bring a buyer, and so they're planning to pay something.
Okay.
So we just.
But it could vary house to house.
It could, and if your friends have dug in, it's interesting because the way the media is talking about it, it's like it never has varied house to house. It's always varied house to house. In the time that I've been in this business, I've seen houses where they only wanted to pay a buyer's agent $150. I've seen houses where there was zero. It's not a new thing. It's just that in Michigan, we had the paperwork to talk about it. And in other states, they have not had the paperwork, and it was very hard to understand what was going on.
Gotcha.
So then we'll fill out, if you buy a house that I've shown you 3 months after the fact and try to skip me, I'm going to ask you to pay me. If I was the one that showed it to you, we already talked about the disclosure regarding real estate relationships. It's there, so we just have to mark that you have seen that. And then we've already talked about non-discrimination. If people are purple and they worship hubcaps, you don't care, we're just doing business. Condition of the property, I'm really good with houses, but you are not going to take my word for it. I'm not going to do a full inspection while we're out looking at houses, and my recommendation is that you hire somebody to go through the house for you.
Okay.
Or if you have somebody in your life that's in construction, I kind of remember that there's somebody.
Yeah, my uncle does it, and, I mean, he would probably come and check the house out for me.
And that's fine. We don't have licensed inspectors in Michigan. And so if you've got somebody that's competent in your life, you're welcome to have them inspect it.
So I don't have to hire an inspector, I
You don't
can use
have
it as
to.
long as I'm comfortable.
Yeah, and it's totally up to you. It's just recommended that someone take a deep look at the house before you finish the payment.
Gotcha.
Everything's got a mediation clause in it. It's not waiving your right to litigate. It just is allowing you to say you will go to mediation prior, and there's mediation information here.
So what, this is if something happens during the transaction, or?
It is during my service to you, so it could be during the transaction, or it could be something post-transaction.
Okay,
I've only had 2 instances come up with buyers, and they both concerned disclosures and water.
okay,
And in both cases, one didn't end up going to mediation. The agent that made the error helped correct it, and the other one went to mediation, and the seller that had opted to not disclose what they should have corrected it. So, non-assignment, you're doing this for yourself. I'm gonna share who you are, but I'm not gonna share any of your financial details or anything. Your name's on the contract.
Yep.
You're going to tell anybody that asks, like if you're at open house, that you're working with an agent. We're not gonna share your information. This is a hold harmless for the broker. You've got 6 months from the time of the close of the transaction to bring up any concerns. Miscellaneous, in this document just says you can't pick it apart. And then the only out-of-pocket fee that I have to my buyers is $300 processing fee at close.
what is the processing fee for?
It just basically covers some of my admin expenses to set up your file.
Okay,
And so I know that we've talked about that you're only gonna be here for about 4 years, right? Yeah, when you come back and we sell your property, you won't have that admin fee.
Okay.
So it's a one-time setup fee with me.
perfect.
All right, awesome. And then the last one is that Kim Dunham supervises me. I have my broker's license, but I choose to work within a larger brokerage. And Kim is the owner operator, and she has to put up with me. And they always laugh at that.
I don't think I'm not gonna do it. Just kidding.
But usually by that time, my buyer has a good sense of that I maybe am not a very conforming person.
That was awesome.
So are you staying for the next? This is the last part.
Well, yeah, let's go, finish it up. I'm
Can I
just
ask
saying
you a
this is awesome.
question?
Yeah.
Person that,
You bet.
back here, I don't wanna interrupt you.
No, and remember that you're gonna get in-depth
Right,
contract information, not from me.
you did that really smooth.
Practice it.
I blanked 3%. Did you say I get paid 3%?
I get paid 3%, because I remember I asked him whether I thought this was a hobby or not.
Yes, that part, so I just want, like your
And-
wording, I liked that, because it.
Yeah, I just said, do you think this is a hobby? No, they don't think it's a hobby, right? When there's, I mean, maybe if they met you at your kid's sports game and, you know, you're living that life and you sell 2 houses a year, they might think it's a hobby. But if you bring them in, you've set the appointment, and you're acting as a professional, they believe that you're a professional.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Cause I know it's negotiable, I just want, but you can decide that that's what you
So,
want for your business.
right, so the way is just like if you go to your brother-in-law's cousin to get your car fixed,
Mm-hmm,
it might be a different rate, right, than if you
Right.
take it to the dealership. I am offering a full service opportunity for my clients. They don't, you know, but there are people that are like the brother-in-law's cousin working out of the garage, right? And that's fine.
Do you mind if I ask, okay, so with the rules have changed in law, whatever the rules have changed, are you seeing a lot of people not wanna pay the 3% as far as sellers? Or what, mind if I ask,
I've had one.
out of all
I've had one, and I'm gonna be ugly, and she would allow me to be ugly because she embraced what she did. She's from the East Coast, from Long Island,
Mhm.
and she is very well educated. Her husband's very well educated, and her parents are very well educated. I work a lot in East Lansing. And the assumption usually is that I am not well educated. Just so you know. Combination of I'm working in real estate and my accent in East Lansing often causes people to come to the conclusion that maybe I'm not bringing a full brain cell. I'm just telling you how it is.
I
I'm
know,
not.
but as far as your accent, I mean, I picked up on the accent things. I picked up a Midwest accent.
It is less than it used to be. I have a terrible accent. But
Gould, Arkansas.
yep. So anyway,
Yeah.
they chose.
I think you've shed that quite a bit.
I've also lived in. We'll have another discussion about my accent sometime. But anyway, it was right after all of the media stuff, and she said, "I don't want to pay. I don't have to pay. I'm not gonna pay." And I said, and this is someone I had known for an extended period of time. It was not a stranger to me. And I said, "Cool. You don't have to. It's not what I'm recommending. I have no data to show you what may or may not happen. I'm going to tell you most people are going to be scared to talk about their money to their client. And so you're going to reduce your number of buyer's agents that are going to show it because they're scared to talk to their people that they get paid." She said, "I don't care." I said, "Okay." I said, "So here's what I'm going to do. I will offer 0 buyer's compensation, but if we reach," and we picked out a date, "this date, we're going to revisit this."
That's great, just like the price negotiable.
And I said, "I think you're costing yourself money. I think you will end up with less showings, less offers, less money. I don't care. I don't want to pay." Awesome. So that's exactly what we did. And there was one particular brokerage in town that had done a particularly good job of training their people other than us. I would say that we did a good job too, but that had trained their people to have that conversation. And it was that brokerage that brought an offer. And their people paid cash, closing costs, cash, for their agent to bring an offer. Now, because my client was lovely, she referred me to a neighbor around the corner, same product. They were both 50s ranches in East Lansing with about the same upgrades and 2-car garage, which is super unusual, right, in that tight neighborhood. I got $30,000 more for the neighbor because we offered compensation. So to save herself 6, maybe 8, it was 300. They were $300,000 houses. So to save herself $9,000, she cost herself $21. And frankly, she had a nicer house. So, can you do it? Absolutely. I sold one, the one I inspected today offered me 2%. It had sat on the market. Awesome. I didn't yell at the agent. I said, "Thanks for the information. I'll write my offer the way I need to." So I went and talked to my buyer and I said, "Didn't think I'd have to have this conversation. But here we are. They're only offering me X. And I told you I work for this. And so are you comfortable paying me the extra?" And I'd done the math so that they knew how much money it was. I said, "Because remember, I said I'd work for this. And I will. But that means I've got a gap here." And they went, "Of course we want to have you paid." And they had the money. And then I wrote my offer. And I wrote concessions in that are higher than that gap. So my buyer's getting more money than what the gap is.
I'm trying to assimilate all this because I have, as I was getting all giddy and excited here, they're meeting me at 4:30 today, so I gotta be prepared
Right, yeah.
for a buyer's thing.
Well, you're okay. I just tell them, I work for 3%. That's my That's what I run my business on. That's where I'm at.
So you will go down to 2.5, the seller's gonna pay 2, you'll ask for a minimum of 0.5% from the buyer? Was your lowest?
That's how I run my business.
Okay.
Am I gonna tell you that I might not do something different in a different case? Dave is here. His wife died a tragic death. He's gonna have to bring money to the table to sell his house. I sold him the house 8 months ago. Might I do something different for Dave, the tragic person? I might.
Definitely a case by case scenario, cause
Yeah.
you never know what you're lining up
Right.
across from either.
Right.
Right?
And you don't know, there could be all kinds of different scenarios. I've sold vacant land for more as a percentage. I've sold vacant land for very little because it was part of a multi-step process. It really truly is negotiable.
Yeah, I just love your wording, instead of saying when you go, like starting it out, let's negotiate a percentage, or, you know what I mean, for.
Oh, it's, I get
So,
paid blank, because
yes.
that's your paycheck, right? She says
Yes.
it exactly
I
perfect.
love it.
I get
Yeah.
paid 3%.
Yeah. So, all right, so when you go out there looking at homes and everything, how do you have that conversation? What do you say to the listing agent? You ask them verbally what the compensation is, what they will compensate?
99.9% of the time, nope, I write an offer.
Just write the offer, put it right in the offer.
And,
Yeah, don't even waste your time making the phone call. Hey Renee, are you offering 3% commission?
Actually, on this one, no, I'm not. My sellers opted to offer nothing, so I told them to expect to have to make a business decision at the time they received offers. So write the offer the way you need it to be written, and I'll present.
Great, thank you. Click.
that's slick.
Now I'm gonna go back and write my offer with 3% commission built into the offer, right?
So I'm starting to see the picture now. Because you write the offer and they have the ability to counter back.
Right,
But you have an agreement saying you're getting paid 3%.
which is how Michigan has always been. If you had buyer agency agreement in the 10 years I've been licensed, I don't know anything before that, right? It's always said I got paid, I used to word it, say, up to X amount, and I've had to take that up to out because of some of the verbiage. But, I've always said, it's negotiable. This is what I get paid, this is what I run my business on. It's the same thing back to the seller.
Yeah.
This is what I get paid. I
Gotcha.
agree to share.
Is it possible to get a copy, so I use it as a template? The agency agreement that you write up?
It's the one out of law.
I know that, but I'm saying as far as what you put in
I can help you with it.
please,
yeah.
I just,
That
I don't wanna
piece is
feel like
not
I'm-
today. That piece is not today, but I'll help you because you've got an appointment.
yeah, thank you so much. I
You're
don't want
welcome.
to waste a lot of your time, but just that I
No, you're good.
want to be ready for this meeting.
All right,
Okay.
so let's get down to the last thing I told you we were gonna do, other than decide about, what might work for you and to go through some paperwork, was go through the process of actually buying, so you have a mental picture of what the steps are, right?
Absolutely, yeah, 'cause I have no idea what I'm doing.
Okay, that's okay.
I've never done this before.
Awesome, I love working with first-time buyers. Okay, so not everybody's brain works the same. I love a good flow chart. Some people like a checklist, so it's here, in both formats, okay?
Okay.
I'm gonna use the flow chart. Feel free to refer to the checklist at home, okay? So we're just gonna go through here. Select a real estate agent. Hopefully you've done that already. Apply for your pre-approval and financing. Now, remind me, did you meet with somebody at Dart Bank?
I did, yep.
Okay,
I did. I met
awesome.
with Joe at Dart Bank and I've got the pre-approval ready to go.
Fantastic. If you need to talk to anybody else, there is a list of lenders I work with often back here at the back.
Okay.
But I love working with Joe. He's gonna do a great job for you. And, rates seem to be kind of across the board right now, so I don't think you find something different if you shopped it. But if you want to, there's a list. All right, we've got figured out that you wanna buy something within 10 miles downtown that was built before 1930, and we're gonna go meet at Butler tomorrow, right?
Yep,
So
I'm excited about that.
then we're gonna view properties. Oh, it's so much fun to go into the first one. Have you gone to any open houses?
No, because I don't wanna deal with agents,
Mm.
and I'll be really honest with you, I don't wanna deal with that, so I haven't.
Okay.
I
I
was
just-
kinda waiting to pick one, so you could go with me.
Okay, sounds great, and I'm happy to meet you there if I'm available.
Sorry, just kidding.
But I bet have you looked at more than 100 houses online?
Oh, minimum.
Okay. So I want you just to keep that in your thought process when we go in. Oftentimes I take buyers out and they won't let themselves like the first house we're in because they feel like they shouldn't buy the first one that they see. Have you thought about that?
I don't think I've put a ton of thought into that. I think
Okay.
if I find a house, I like it, but also I wanna make sure I get the right deal, so
Okay.
maybe I would wait.
All right, so what I want you to think about is you've already seen 100 houses. So if you walk into that first one and you love it, remember you've already seen 100. Okay? Just
I never thought of it that way.
so just keep that in mind. Maybe the first one won't be the right one, but don't pass one up that's a good fit because you haven't seen enough, because you've seen a lot. I know you have. Have you been looking for more than 2 years online?
On and off, yeah, I sure
Yeah.
have.
Yeah, and that's a real typical thing right now, just so you know. And usually by the time we get to looking at a physical house, the thing that you're really trying to zone in on is whether the space feels right and whether the light feels right.
Okay.
All right, so when we write our offer, remember I gave you a sample of the purchase agreement. There are 2 things right now that we're negotiating on: price and occupancy.
What about condition of the house?
I'm not gonna tell you I haven't negotiated anything, because I'm really good at what I do, but most of the time, we're actually having to limit how much risk the seller has about the condition of the house.
Okay.
And we'll go through what makes a winning, offer on a house, okay? There's some things we can do. But let's get through this and then we'll talk about that, because you brought it up, we'll talk about what makes a winning offer, okay? Negotiate terms and accept a contract. Then, all of the timeframes that we've laid out in the offer start once we get an accepted contract, okay? So, concerning inspections, I'm trying to write 5 business days. We'll look at your calendar when we get an accepted offer. And we might adjust that, like if you're gonna be gone or something for work, because I know you travel some. Okay. Everybody always wants to know where they have money needs when they're purchasing. You have money needs to do your inspections. You can shop these. I'm never exact on this is kind of a round figure. General inspection is going to be top to bottom, inside and out is around $375 for the type of property you're going to be looking at. Pest inspections, $100, and we have wood destroying insects in the Lansing metro area. The treatment, they're lazy and slow compared to termites in other parts of the country, but they still need to be treated. Very rare do we see anything that's got structural damage from them, but treatment's a couple $1,000, so you want to be able to pass that on to the seller if you need to.
Okay.
Radon is this little folder right here, explains it, but it's naturally occurring radioactive gas in our subsoil. And especially if we look at something that somebody's been living in for 20 years or more, they've probably never tested for radon. The remediation for radon is about $1,000. So again, for a $100 test to decide whether or not you need $1,000 treatment, you might want to do that as part. All of these are your choice, but I recommend that you do them. Sewer scope is about $250, and it is a colonoscopy for your sewer line. Okay, do you know how sewer line works? Like what it looks like?
Yep, it goes from the inside of the house out, usually
Right.
in the city out to the street, right?
Right, and it's made out of, in the older parts of Lansing, unless we're in like 1985 or newer, it's gonna be made out of clay tile. and they're about this long, and they have a male end and a female end, and they fit together, and when they initially put the line in, it had like tar that stuck the two pieces together, and that dries out, and there's water in the sewer line, right?
Yeah.
So the tree roots come down and try to get into that sewer line. So we wanna know, does it have a problem? Is it blocked by roots? Sometimes it's fine and it can be cleared out and you just go on with your life. I had one in East Lansing last year that was completely blocked because the family had not been living in the home and the tree roots had taken over, and it was a $20,000 repair. So I really recommend that people do a sewer scope. It seems like a lot of money when you're looking at inspections, but it can save you a lot of heartache too.
I understand, especially because I'm buying something, I want something a little bit older, so.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, if we were out in a Mayberry house that had been built, 2 years ago or something, it would be a different deal, but I really recommend it. The other place you need money is your earnest money deposit. And that is the money that you as the buyer put on deposit at the title company. And it shows that you have the financial intention to purchase this home. Okay? Now, this is where I always talk about purple shutters. So, because people want to know if that earnest money is going to stay theirs.
Okay, this is good, yeah.
All right, so we roll up to this house, and I'm going to say to you, Dave, this house has purple shutters. And you're going to go, yep, I see them. Great, awesome. I'm going to say, fantastic. Then you're going to have your inspection. Your inspector is going to say, Dave, this house has purple shutters. And you're going to go, awesome, yeah, love it. We'll go through that. Then you call me the week of closing and you say, Renee, I cannot live in a house with purple shutters. I'm going to go, Dave, did we talk about it? I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say, well, you know you're going to lose your earnest money, right? Yep. You know you're going to have to talk to an attorney because you're in a binding contract. Yep. So just know that as long as we follow the contract, you'll be okay, and that money will either come back to you because you decided this wasn't the home that you wanted, or it will flow through to your purchase.
So it's almost like a security deposit on the house.
Almost, but it's really hard in the way that our contract is written for the seller to keep it unless you default on the contract.
Okay.
It's very much you're going to flow through and become part of your closing costs.
Kind of just sounds like it just lets the seller know I have a little bit of skin in the game.
Yeah, that's really it, because I used to work with an agent that said, what do they think they're buying, a TV? It lets them know that you have the ability to make the purchase
That
and the
makes
intent
sense.
to make the purchase.
Yep, that
Okay.
makes sense.
So then it takes about, once we work through your inspections, and you can walk away, this isn't the house for you. We can negotiate because it is a good home, but something needs to be addressed. Or you can just move forward because everything's within tolerance, okay?
Yep.
We're really looking for big health and safety issues through our inspection. This is not about, oh, I hate the color of the paint and I want them to give me a paint allowance, okay? So from accepted contract to being able to go to closing, depends on your lender, but it's probably gonna be 4 or 5 weeks right now.
Okay.
Once we are done with the inspections, you're gonna formally apply for your loan, okay?
Yep.
And they're gonna ask you for everything but a kidney. Just so you know, you're gonna feel like you've already given them the information. Go back and give it to them again. Please keep your job the same, because with the current lending environment, they're gonna call the week of closing maybe and check to make sure that you're working the same number of hours at the same place that you originally disclosed. There's a flyer in here that talks about what not to do when you're getting ready to buy. Yeah, there we go. Don't go out and open up a bunch of credit. Talk to your lender about how to stay the same person that you are at the pre-approval through the process, okay?
So just don't do anything for a month and I'm good.
Should be. Make sure you make all the payments you said you'd make them.
Oh, yeah, yeah, I just meant don't go buy a boat.
Not on credit. And then the other thing that happens in this time period is that they're conducting a title search during a transaction where there's a lender involved. There are 2 title insurance policies purchased. The seller will buy one for you, you will buy one for your lender, and that just assures everybody that the person selling the property had the legal right to do so, and there aren't any additional issues with the property. So if it ever had gone through an estate or a divorce, that was handled properly, and the person selling it has the legal right to sell it.
Gotcha.
Okay? And that's just kind of going on behind the scenes. It's really, if there's any issue there, it's up to the seller to correct it. So then we get to closing, and then if we've negotiated occupancy for the seller, you may have to wait a little bit, but that's kind of, do you have any questions about that?
No, this is incredibly thorough, thank you.
You're welcome. So that kind of wraps up what I talk about. We may go into strategy about most homes in the price point, just so you know the people I've been winning with in your price point. The winning offers have been 10 to 15% above asking price. So just know when we go in and look, the likelihood that you're gonna pay $175,000 for $175,000 advertised price is not good. If you really wanna negotiate, if that's who you are as a person, cool with me. We're just not gonna look at anything until it's been on the market for 2 weeks or more.
I was just about to ask that question, like if it's been on the market, I see it sitting, is that a different story?
That's a totally different story, and I love to negotiate. So we'll, we can just talk about that. Some people go in and we start out looking at things that have been listed immediately, and they don't enjoy that process, and so we switch our strategy and go off after ones that have been listed for a while. The other thing most of my buyers are doing to win is that when they ask for inspections, they say that they will only negotiate on things that are gonna cost a cumulative more, say like, excuse me, I don't know why I'm burping, $2,000 or more to repair. Because what I want you as a first-time buyer, you're bringing all your money to the table to get into this house, right?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
just about every penny I have.
Right, so I don't want you to find out that you need a furnace or that your attic is full of mold or something. I wanna protect you from a big repair, but I want the seller to know that you're gonna be easy to work with.
Love it.
And then the last thing, and then the last thing that we're doing to help buyers win in competitive situations is saying that if the appraised value, it doesn't equal the sales price, that we're putting in what we call an appraisal gap.
Ooh, I like that.
You don't?
I heard about that.
Okay, so all I will say is just know that it's a tool that's out there, and it might cost you $1,500 or $2,000, but it might be what gets you the house.
Okay.
So we don't have to do that the first couple of times. Maybe we can get something bought without it. But just know that it's another tool in the tool belt to help be competitive in that sort of situation. Okay?
Love it.
Or maybe we won't have to compete and we can ask them to pay some closing costs. You don't know, we just have to look at each individual house as we go.
Okay.
So that's kind of what I do in a nutshell.
I'm gonna take off,
Thanks.
and thank you so much. Thank you, Dave.
So Dave,
Bye, Dave.
Dave's going, Renee, you snagged me.
Happy to do it, actually, that was a lot of fun.
But I do it the same way every time, all the time. I know what questions they're gonna ask, and I'm ready to go. I'm not thinking on my feet about what my first-time home buyer is gonna wanna know. My kids could do my buyer presentation. My kids could do my listing presentation because I practiced it with them, to them, around them. So to me, and it's just one less thing, because then you don't throw yourself into a panic. You know what you're gonna do, right?
smooth.
Yeah,
Now, 2 quick questions. The first one is, can you remind me, just for my own purposes, how much Keller Williams get? Is it 1 or 1.5% for the office? For Keller Williams? I know Chuck's
It
told me
it can
before.
put so the minimum that you have to charge is a 1%.
Not that I ever would, but I mean, as far as. And the second question was, okay, so.
And that,
open
one
house-
more thing.
Yeah.
And that's only if you are not capped. If you're capped,
Yeah.
they're not getting paid anything at the office level anyway. You need to talk to your team about how that works with your team, but, there's not an office minimum if you're capped. But think about before you charge low amount,
Oh,
do I
don't
want
plan
them,
to.
do I want them to tell all their friends that I did this?
oh, yeah, for sure, and then it's like,
Because
oh, no.
then you get in this horrible cycle of, right, well, and you can't ever get out of it. You know, cause then you're the asshole for saying, no, I need to make this amount of money.
Yeah,
All right, what's the
that
second
one's-
one?
And then the second one is, so if you're at an open house and you pick up a buyer, I know you're not doing open houses, but as far as the presentation goes, is there anything you would definitely want signed at the open house and then arrange for the appointment to talk about the offer?
No, because if you're at the open house,
It's
if
not,
you're,
it wouldn't
if
be
you're,
my open house.
okay, then you need to just, at the open house, you're not required to,
Okay,
but you need to talk about your agency and how agencies work. And then if they want you to act as their agent, then you need to meet them offsite. And I would schedule a separate showing, really is
Okay.
what I would do. I would say, you know, sounds like you'd really like me to represent you. Let's meet at the office at, you know, I've literally driven from open house to the office before. And then go back and look at it, because when you're standing in that open house, you're representing the seller.
right.
And you
So-
need to remember that I have, after the fact, found out that sellers had cameras I couldn't see, and they were judging everything that I said.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure nothing needed to be like signed before they walked out the door.
Yeah, and they were people that should have damn well known it was illegal. I was not very happy with it. And I wasn't sad when they didn't hire me for the third transaction with them.
So nothing needs to be signed before they walk out the door, because you're going to.
Yeah, it's quite slimy.
So
Like, oh,
I think the technical issue, or the technical answer to that question is that before anyone tells you anything about their financial position or anything else that could be negotiated with or upon, you're supposed to sign disclosure of agency relationships. But if I was standing in the open house, rather than trying to get somebody to sign something, I would say to them, you know what, while we're standing here right now, I really represent the seller and I'm really enjoying you, or whatever, however you say it. And I would love to have the opportunity to at least talk about working together. But right now, I'm really in the role where I'm working for the seller, so why don't you not tell me anything until we meet at the office afterwards?
oh, yeah, that's good. Thank you.
And then we can, if we want to, we can enter into a relationship where I'm representing